the last 60 years, Doctor Who has terrified its viewers with the use of very specific psychological scare tactics. I know this because the show scared me as a kid, and it now scares my children too. As an author of scary fiction myself, including Doctor Who stories like The Gemini Contagion and The Demons of Red Lodge, and novels like The Last Days of Jack Sparks, I'm well versed in fear. So let's dive into the 10 most effective scare tactics that Doctor Who has deployed. Stick around till the end too, when I'll explain why made-up stories have such power to scare us. Firstly, let's imagine something completely devoid of emotion, and in particular, guilt. Order this thing to trundle off and blow up an orphanage, and it will simply follow orders. Doctor Who makes endless use of robots to unsettle its viewers. Cybermen are a prime example, outwardly at least. We'll get on to their most scary element later. Some of the most alarming automatons that spring to mind are the chilling subterranean androids of Earthshock and the Five Doctors Raston robot. Come to think of it, are these first two related? Maybe they're cousins. And of course, the freakish Mr. Sin in the Talons of Weng Chiang, a robot with a pig's brain implanted into it. Now that's something you really don't want in your wardrobe. Is Mr. Sin in your wardrobe right now? He might be. Best not to think about it. Next, let us consider those moments in Doctor Who that deliver a shock to the system, then leave us hanging by a thread for a full 7 days. Classic Doctor Who cliffhangers did this exceptionally well, often scarring the viewer by leaving the Doctor or his companion in mortal danger. Whenever you reached the 23rd minute of a classic Doctor Who episode, your pulse was definitely up, because you knew that something terrible was going to happen, and then the cliffhanger vortex howl was going to come crashing in. That thing had the power to elevate even the most innocuous Doctor Who cliffhanger into something truly scary. For instance, The Horror of Fang Rock, one of Doctor Who's all-time most scary stories, and yet the cliffhanger to episode 1 technically isn't scary at all. A ship running aground beside the lighthouse. No one that we know is actually in any kind of danger, and yet the cliffhanger vortex howl actually manages to make that scary. Moving on, post-millennial Doctor Who likes to show shades of grey and present three-dimensional characters, which is obviously a good thing, and yet the most effective and scary villains tend to have zero redeeming qualities and simply want everybody dead. Yes, I'm talking about pure, undiluted evil, often of the ancient variety, and preferably from before the dawn of time. Villains like the Master, Davros, and Swarm from Flux would just be really horrible people to be around. You wouldn't dare say anything to them, would you? Even if the fridge really needed milk. A chilling declaration of Sutek's servant that he brings death to all humanity is especially pants-browning. Part of the Daleks' eternal allure lies in the fact that they would totally blow up an orphanage despite not being robots. And frankly, the Weeping Angels are no better, tormenting people for the heck of it. By the way, who was Sutek's servant? We never see him again. Anyway, moving on. Now here's something that requires minimal special effects and little expense besides hiring a really good actor. When the character becomes someone else entirely, despite retaining the same face, that's really scary. Two of the greatest examples of bodily possession in Who include Reuben, the lighthouse keeper from Fang Rock with that creepy little smile, and the absolutely demonic Skye Silvestri from Midnight. Even the Doctor and his companions aren't immune to possession, and when they do succumb, the effects can be even more unnerving. Think of Sarah Jane under Eldrad's control in The Hand of Fear, or the nucleus-controlled Fourth Doctor levelling his blaster at Leela in The Invisible Enemy. Scare tactic number 5 sees the show truly hitting viewers where they live. Whether it's Cybermen bashing down suburban front doors in Army of Ghosts, silicon blocks crashing through patio windows in The Stones of Blood, or troll dolls coming to life in Terror of the Autons. And let's not forget the unsettling intrusions into the TARDIS itself by Sontarans, Daleks, and Neil Gaiman's own creation, House, in 2011's The Doctor's Wife. At one point during the 80s, the Cybermen may as well have had a key to the TARDIS for all the waltzing in and out they did. As we pause briefly to regain our composure, I'm reminded of my poll that suggests that 2/3 of the people who watch this channel write fiction or would love to. I'd hate for you to miss your chance to grab a free 15-minute one-to-one coaching call with me on Zoom, during which we'll identify your biggest creative roadblock. See the video description or the pinned comment below to book your call before all the slots fill up. Now, when it comes to scaring your audience, one killer technique is to take a step back and allow them to fill in blanks themselves. I've used this tactic myself in A Sincere Warning About the Entity in Your Home, which is literally set in the home of whoever reads it. 2008's Midnight, featuring the aforementioned Skye Silvestri, is Doctor Who's masterclass in this approach. Russell T Davies' idea of an entity that mimics others creates intense fear and paranoia, and best of all, Russell never explains a thing at the end. That was so refreshing in Doctor Who, which often had that tendency to want to explain explain everything at the end. Thinking about it, Russell is probably the boldest Doctor Who writer of them all when it comes to leaving the viewer to project their own fears onto a story. By the end of The Impossible Planet / The Satan Pit, we had no clue as to exactly what that beast was. And coming bang up to date, it's wonderful that we will never know what the scary lady was saying throughout 73 yards. Next up, when you change just 2 small aspects of somebody's face, you can maximize the troubling effect it will have on your audience.
Windows to the soul, my friends.
Yes, Doctor Who has always put scary eyes to great use, whether it's glowing red eyes in the Robots of Death or black eyes in Tooth and Claw. The Master's terrifying meaty ping-pong ball eyes in The Deadly Assassin were part of a mask, and the TV movie CGI effects allowed the Master to then adopt snake eyes. But generally speaking, the contact lens industry has done very well out of Doctor Who. Just 3 more fright factors to go before I get on to explaining why the brain gets so scared by made-up stuff. Now, there's only one thing more scary than home invasion and possession, and that's an alien entity transforming your own personal temple. Naturally then, Doctor Who has mind-body horror for all it's worth. 2 striking examples of this are Noah's transformation in the Ark in Space and Winlet's especially horrid metamorphosis in The Seeds of Doom. Come the CG era, we had the very memorable image of Victor Meldrew's face turning into a gas mask in The Empty Child. Sometimes it's villains on the receiving end. Think of Omega discovering that he has no head in The Three Doctors, or Hieronymus's energy face in The Mask of Mandragora. The work of Mark Gatiss, like The Idiot's Lantern and Night Terrors, often incorporates effective body horror. But as I hinted at earlier, Doctor Who's most effective body horror threat is cyber conversion, which will cost you not only most of your most cherished bodily organs, but your humanity. Moving on again, Doctor Who often creates fear through confined spaces. Once again, this is a prime example of budgetary necessity being the mother of invention. Introduced by producer Inez Lloyd during the 1960s, the base under siege scenario minimized sets while maximizing tension. Stories like The 10th Planet, The Moon Base, and Earthshock thrive on the claustrophobia of an impending threat breaking in, and Doctor Who has dined out on that concept ever since. Lastly then, let's talk about those times when the enemy disguises itself without having to resort to bodily possession. Let's talk about the pervasive sense of unease that occurs when we become uncertain of who's human and who is not. Zygons are the perfect example of monsters who disguise themselves as us, and when they abruptly switch back to their true form in 1975's Terror of the Zygons, it creates one of the biggest cliffhanger jolts in history. The most recent example of impersonation in Doctor Who was last year's Wild Blue Yonder. When the Dr. Donna duo were assailed by shape-shifting clones of themselves, many a spinal shiver ensued. Okay, so why do made-up stories have such power to scare us? It's all down to a part of the brain called the amygdala. That's the one that triggers the fight or flight response. Even though we technically know that a scary story gives us a safe way to experience fear, our brain doesn't know the difference. It can't really tell the difference between a fictional threat and a real-life one. Hence our pulse rising, our heart thumping, and our popcorn going everywhere. So, which of Doctor Who's 10 scare tactics in this video do you find the most effective, and which one would you like me to go deeper on in a future video? Let me know down in comments. And if you want to keep watching here on YouTube, you'll find videos around this screen relevant to your interests. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to embrace your obsession.